Sammy Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Lear. I'm very happy to take part in this debate. First of all, I want to say I recognise that this is not a unique situation to Northern Ireland, because of course 1,200 jobs across the United Kingdom are going to be lost in 39 regional offices. However, I suppose the difference is this, that 1/4 of those jobs will be located in jobs lost will be located in Northern Ireland, and indeed 1/6 of them will be in one particular town. And that's I suppose the difference in the case that those of us from Northern Ireland are making, that there will be a disproportionate impact of this on one particular area, which, as already the member for East Londonderry has pointed out, has suffered significantly from job losses. I just want to look at three things this morning. First of all, will this be better than what we have at present? The argument that the Minister will make is that it will make services available to people in Northern Ireland which are currently not available. However, I would point out that in the surveys which have been shown, many people are not even looking for those services. Indeed, they have said they would not wish to use those services. Amongst all customers, the services which are being withdrawn, 60% say that those are the services that they wish to use. If you look at the dealers themselves, the services that are being withdrawn, 90% of the dealers are saying those are the very services that they would want to use. So this is not in response to what the public who are paying for vehicle licensing say that they want to see. And if we look at the people who will be impacted, there will be the small dealers. 20,000 new registrations every year come through small dealers who mostly use local DVA offices because they don't have all of the computer backup, etc., for the online services. For those who deal with complex cases, indeed, the department's own estimate is that of 2,000 or 3,000 of the complex cases, they will have to be dealt with by post with Swansea, rather than dealing with face-to-face encounters at the DVA offices in Northern Ireland, with all of the difficulties which that causes, because the very fact that they are complex usually requires you to be able to talk to somebody. So by the department's own estimate, there are 3,000 people who are going to find that they're less well off here. When it comes to refunds, and the Minister has given some figures, but it's not, I mean, if the Minister wants to ask some questions of his officials, maybe he should be asking not just about refunds, but first registrations, changes to registrations, and the average wait at offices. All of them. Swansea performs far worse than the DVA offices in Northern Ireland. So service is going to be reduced to a wide range of customers dealing with a wide range of issues. And of course, when it comes to fraud, and it's already been pointed out, I see my colleagues laughing here because we've got a very rigorous system dealing with people who do not pay their road tax in Northern Ireland. Indeed, I have been a victim of it. I've been, and indeed, there is no kind of allowances given. I got caught taking my motorbike to get prepared for MOT, despite the fact I could show that I was taking it to get prepared for MOT. I could show the dockets that I was taking it to the garage. They said it was on the road without tax, and I got fined. It was well publicised for. And that's one of the reasons why I believe that, because of the rigorous enforcement, that we have the lowest rate of evasion of anywhere in the United Kingdom. And of course, if that goes up and only 7 prosecutors are going to be left, there's been no arrangements what interface there will be with local agencies. If that goes up, then there's going to be a loss to the Exchequer. So will it be better? The answer is no, it will not be better. Will it save money? Well, we already know that one of the reasons for the centralisation that there is being proposed is because of the huge capital costs of the investment in the IT system. Well, yes.
Thank you, member, for giving way.
he was just alluding to the question he was posing about will the service get better, and as has been outlined by a number of members, it appears it will get worse. But does he agree with me that not only will the service suffer in Northern Ireland, but given the figures that a number of us have outlined in terms of the centralised process in Swansea, the service that people will get in the rest of the United Kingdom will also suffer because of the additional workload that they will have to deal with if centralisation went ahead?
And that's one of the points I wanted to make in relation to cost, and it's already been pointed out by the member for North Ealing, that as a result of centralisation and the additional workload, even some of the savings which had been anticipated have not been realised, as overtime payments have gone up. And of course, the additional workload that will come in as a result of Northern Ireland will put further pressure. And I suspect that the 400 new jobs which have been and will be created in Swansea will not be sufficient to deal with this, and therefore some of the anticipated savings that were put forward for this proposal will not actually be realised. So I mean, I think that we've got to look at it in terms of what the customers want, what in terms of the Treasury is feasible, and of course the additional costs, as have been pointed out, in an area of very high unemployment. And I know we don't get a lot of cross-departmental thinking on these issues anyway, but in an area which already has very high levels of unemployment, it is not likely. And I would love to see, I'm actually a supporter of the restructuring of the Northern Ireland economy. And I would love to think that all of the people who are going to find themselves displaced in DVA offices across Northern Ireland would easily move into jobs in the private sector. But when there have already been significant job losses in the private sector, in the likes of Coleraine, the only place they're going to move to is the Dole. And that in itself adds additional costs to the public purse. So, you know, I don't believe that there's an economic case for it either. Now, a number of options have been put forward, and I don't want to simply say to the Minister, well, look, we don't like this, so don't do it. There have been options, and the do-nothing option is one which has been put forward. The IT costs which were being sunk will be lost. The additional services which the Department wishes to give to people in Northern Ireland, even though the majority of them don't want it. And indeed I would point out to the Minister that even after 10 years in the in GB, 50% of people don't still use online services. So we're not unique in Northern Ireland in this either. The do-nothing option is one. And it wouldn't cost anything, but of course there would be the sunk costs which already been in the IT system. One suggestion which has been made, and I would ask the Minister to give serious consideration to this, is that yes, there will be a transition. There is resistance to the changes. There is quite clear evidence that people still want to use the DVA services. If the system were put in place, and those who wish to use the new services and the new methods of delivering those services could do it. Those who didn't, there would still be the residual, that residual group of people who could use the full DVA services. It would probably mean that immediately about 100 jobs would be lost, but the rest would be retained. 3 offices would remain, but the rest would have to close. That's the estimate which has been done in Northern Ireland. Over time, that may change as people get used to the new services, but at least it would avoid the big bang of sudden job losses, all of the jobs going, and would also mean that you would not have the gap in service for people who need to or want to use the face-to-face services. There would be considerable savings on this. The savings on the staff, on the running costs, will be £4.5 million. That would be a 36% reduction in running costs in Northern Ireland. That's twice the savings which DVLA anticipate for the change towards the integrated system anyway. The Minister actually could make the case on the basis that there were savings available. It would also mean that DVA staff in Northern Ireland would actually be trained on the new system. Now, bearing in mind what has already been said about the pressures which there is on the Swansea system at present, that would give a contingency for DVLA to fall back on, of trained staff in Northern Ireland, in a place where, as has already been pointed out, productivity is far, far better. There are a number of benefits to this, it's one way, I believe, of retaining jobs, retaining a significant number of jobs in Northern Ireland, and avoiding the very, very high economic impact of this proposal on one part of the United Kingdom, a disproportionate impact. And I'm not going to go through all the figures other members have mentioned, but I believe that there are other options, of course, transferring blocks of services. But the one thing which I don't think that the Minister can simply do is say, look, we have decided that all of these services are going to be withdrawn, that there will be this huge gap left in the job market in Northern Ireland. That, to me, is not good for customers, it's not good for the Exchequer, it's not good for the Northern Ireland economy, and it doesn't make sense of the skills which are already there in Northern Ireland, which will be abandoned.